Hey guys, so as I check something here, make sure it's beeping. Yeah, it is. I got a reflection in the back here so I can check. But hey, I wanted to come up here, and it's not much of a follow up or anything, but I wanted to kind of give my overall thoughts on ChatGPT and essentially other, um, you know, uh, AI programs out there that you know are meant to be utilized to help us out with like outlines and ideas, scenarios, stuff like that. Just by typing in, or speaking, a suggestion and everything, or an outline or an idea to see what they can come up with. And overall, excuse me, overall, I will say that the way I look at it. Sorry about that. Gotta get something to drink there. But the way I look at it is overall, you know, it's a good it basically is a good service. I'll put it that way. It is a decent software tool that's still in its infancy. Essentially, this is something that's been around since, from what it sounds like, late 2001, not 2001, but late 2021 into a majority of 2022, and now it's still in its infancy. It's only been around for barely 2 years, if not that. And it's still a program that is slowly learning and developing, what it's capable of, in the long run. It really is. I mean, it does do a decent job. As I mentioned in the previous video, um, excuse me, it essentially, wrote up, I basically asked it to, generate, a more alternative situation, a more reasonable, sensible situation, to Archie Sonic 134 in the infamous slap situation that wouldn't result in it. And much to my surprise, as I read it off there in the previous video, it gave a solution that made a lot more sense than what we got. It gave a solution that made a lot more sense than what we got. And it even, when I asked it to create like an outline for Tails and Nicole to fall in love, in the post reboot, if you will, it gave somewhat of a decent outline. Like it still has things to learn. That still has more information to gather over time before it's fully like developed and ready to go. But from what I saw, it gave a decent a decent outline, a decent pitch, if you will. Kind of rough draft, very very rough draft, if you will, of of the direction you can go in with those kind of stories. And I even had a little fun too. I had a little fun saying, okay, what would happen if we had a scenario where so and so cast of a show, or so and so people of the YouTube community, will cast in iconic roles of iconic films. Like, I asked them, what would happen if we put Angry Joe, the nostalgia critic, Angry Video Game Nerd, Lankara, Just Alex, JD from NY206, OTR Central, Vega, who's Lankara, Lewis Lovehog's wife, Vega, who has her own channel on YouTube, Vega's Art Room, I think. What would happen if you put them into the roles of the Star Wars characters from the original trilogy? And it gave me a list of what roles they feel they fit more into based on who they are or what they can learn about them. And not only did I get a good crack out of it, a good laugh out of it, but I honestly could picture them in those roles. Like, for example, it put Just Alex of Just Alex's World. He and JD and Salamas, they're going to do live streams tonight after Dynamite. It put him as Luke Skywalker. And it put to OTR Central, the Schleg Daddy, Jeff Siegel, as Darth Vader. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me. I mean, because they kind of they're on friendly terms, both of them, but they like to go back and forth at times. And on whether or not they agree on one thing or another. But then it showed me where JD from NY206 would land. And they said JD from NY206, from what we learn about him or know about him, he could be Lando. So yeah, it gave me an interesting lineup of the roles they could play. Vega, of course, would be Leia, but still, it gave an interesting role, a list of roles that they could play based on who they are, in character or not. So, so to me, you know, it it to me it's right now it's doing a decent job, but it's also learning. And that obviously is the one concern when we think about that writer strike going on right now. Hopefully, it'll be coming to a close soon. But that's the one concern, obviously, that they have. That you have something like ChatGPT or other software outlets identical to it that are now basically getting into that position of, hey, we could formulate a better script, if not a better outline or rough draft of what a story could be like. Like we could do this, and hey, just there you go, work right off of it and see what you can make of it. And I understand where basically they're coming, where the writers are coming from, because they see they see what these things are doing now, and they're afraid that over time they're going to develop and evolve to the point that the writers are going to become meaningless. It's like, why do we need them? We can just feed the computer, feed softwares like ChatGPT and others just like it, information of what we want to see, how we want to see it presented, and stuff like that. It's like what would be the need for writers if we could just have it, just feed it, feed something like these softwares, these ideas and suggestions, and they spit out potentially a perfectly good script. So I understand that being the main reason why, one of the main reasons why the Writers Guild is striking right now. They don't want to deal with this. They don't want to deal with this scenario being probably becoming a reality. But what they do have to understand, though, is even though this thing's going to evolve and grow over time, there's no doubt, with more information being inputted into it day by day, moment by moment, month by month, year by year. What they have to understand is it's not perfect. It is not perfect at all, because I asked it about certain things, like okay, I asked it, to tell me about certain female singers or artists that utilize claymation or stop motion in their music videos, and it gave me a list of different female artists and singers. And when I went to go check them out, I did not see nothing. And when I went to go kind of tell it, hey, in my own way, hey, I didn't see anything. Were you right? Were you right about that, or were you off? And it would come back and say, you know what, it would come back and say, you know what, you're right, there was nothing. Or it would correct itself and say, hey, sorry about that, we were wrong, there is nothing like that there. We just thought about, I think basically they just go based on what is the closest solution, the closest answer, and everything that they can get, to what you're asking. So to me, if an AI like that, if an AI like that is, basically, how do I put this? If an AI like that is basically making mistakes already and getting confused by the fact that it can't identify what really happens in a music video, and or what happens in a certain movie or show with certain scenes and all that. If it's capable of making that kind of mistake, then obviously it still has a lot of work to do. It still has a lot of work to build upon, if you know what I mean. So to me, I think that's the one thing that the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, and anybody else that's concerned about this has to understand. These softwares, even though they are showing potential for future use, no matter what the situation, they're not perfect. They still have their the glitches. They still have their they still have their off moments. Excuse me, there, and everything. They still have the glitches and off moments because they don't have all the correct information to give you a straight answer. They're just there to kind of help you along the way, like kind of give you an idea of maybe where to find certain things you're looking for, or give you an idea how certain certain stories could play out if they were done a certain way by just inputting a few suggestions and everything like that. So to me, when I look at these things, look at these softwares like ChatGPT, again, I see the potential of where it can go, but I also see the concern from, let's say, a writer. The concern being that that potential that these softwares could head towards could be a detriment to them in the near future. So I get why they don't want to have to deal with that, as time goes on. I understand that. Now, well, the other thing I do have to mention is just like any software, and I think I mentioned this before. I don't think I in the last video. I don't know if I did or not. But just like any new up and coming software, of course you got two options to work with it. You have the free option, which works mostly well in a low setting or a low demand setting, as it says, and then you have the monthly premium section, which works just as well, but just as well as like say as it would in a free low demand low demand option, but the monthly premium section, which is like $20 for chat when it comes to ChatGPT, it works just as well in high demand. Like when you get a high traffic run through this, if you have the premium side of things, it'll work just as well if you were doing it for free, even if it's even if you have a high traffic demand of usage on the software on the site. So to me, that would be the only disadvantage these new softwares have, the fact that they are still basically clean, basically going out there and saying, yeah, you could use this for free, but if you don't want to experience any issues like slowdowns or error messages and all that, here's the premium one that's only like $20, $15, whatever a month, that's going to get you everything you get for free, but without interference or anything like that when it comes to high demand. So that's the only issue I see here that they need to kind of work on, in my opinion. Kind of gravitate from, if you will. But overall, when I look at, like I said, overall in closing, when I look at ChatGPT and other sites like them, I see the potential. I see the fun that you can get out of it, especially when it comes to trying to develop outlines, maybe for ideas for stories to do, fan fiction wise or whatever. Something to play along with, amuse yourself with. But I also can see, like I said, not only the potential for it to grow and evolve, but I see that concern that comes along with it when it comes to people like those in the Writers Guild that's tracking right now. So I understand it both ways. But like I said before, what they have to understand is it's not perfect, and they need to realize that even if it evolves and gets better, it's still not going to be perfect. It's still going to have its issues at times because it's still getting information fed into it over time. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are on it, and until next time, I will talk to y'all later.